I'd like to call the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Selectmen for Monday, January 7th, 2019 to order. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Charlie, would you please? I'm not sure yes, we do have one there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 2 constitutes a public hearing to obtain comment and consider enactment of 3 ordinances. The first, illicit connections and illegal discharges to municipal storm drainage systems, floodplain management, and third is the to amend the code of the Town of Guilford Chapter 236 regarding solid waste and recycling. Janice?
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
At the last meeting, we discussed this. As you know, we are updating 2 of the ordinances, the floodplain management ordinance to be in compliance with the current building code requirements that were enacted in October, and under the recommendations of the state Connecticut DEP floodplain manager. The other is a new ordinance, which is the illegal discharges, illicit connections and illegal discharges to municipal storm drainage systems. And that's in order for the town to be compliant with our stormwater permit, which is the MS4 permit that the town's been operating under since, I believe, 2004. And there's a renewed permit that was enacted a couple years ago. And then the final one is to update the solid waste and recycling ordinance to be kind of current with its language with the state model ordinance.
Wonderful. We did have the benefit of going over this at a previous meeting. Are there any additional questions from the board relative to these ordinances? At this point, questions or comments from the public relative to these 3 ordinances? I did have a question. We have the Chairman of Planning and Zoning here today, Phil Johnson. Phil, any concerns or considerations from your perspective?
The only one that hit me was talking about historic structures and also determining the value of buildings when it comes to substantial improvement. We've had situations in the past where it was undefined as for exactly how we're going to value the building itself. So if a property undergoes substantial improvement, it's supposed to be just the value of the structure itself, not the land that's associated with it. Appraisals rarely come back and say, here's the value of the building. So whether or not we're going to go from assessment records or we're going to require the homeowner or the town to undergo some type of a valuation or assessment or appraisal of the actual building itself. That it was a little loose.
Okay.
The way I've historically done it, been doing floodplain management for 12 years, is we first go to the assessor's field card. As you know, that does break it down, and we use not the assessed value but the appraised value on the assessor's field card. We start with that, and then if people want to, they're able to provide a certified appraisal. And I just explained to them that it does need to break out the value of the structure separate from the property, because we are only looking at the value of the structure, not the property. And I've had a number of people take advantage of that opportunity as well if they feel that the assessor's field card isn't giving them enough value in their opinion. And as long as it's a certified appraisal, I'll accept that. So that's been kind of the practice I take.
Good. Terrific. That's it. Regarding Chapter 174, the floodplain management, I understand that we are adopting the 1-foot freeboard. Could you explain that for the
right? So there was a 1-foot freeboard requirement with the previous building code, and I'm not sure that Guilford had totally adopted it. In this case, we're going to 1-foot freeboard across all all flood zones. So it's not just velocity zone, but it's also the still water zone. And it also takes into consideration 1 foot freeboard for all mechanical equipment as well. The difference also with this ordinance, just to kind of highlight some of the changes from the previous ordinance that was in place, is that we're also looking at, because of building code requirements, that the coastal A zones, which are A zones that are not velocity zones but adjacent to velocity zones and determined by a line on the FEMA maps specifically, those are going to be regulated to be built in compliance with V zone requirements. That's a new requirement under this new ordinance. And then the additional requirement we're adding above and beyond what's required by FEMA is the consideration of the 5-year time period for substantial improvement instead of just going with the 1-year time period. And that's really because, and even in my short time here of less than 6 months, you see people really phase their projects to get around compliance because a 1-year time frame makes it possible to do some improvements, wait a year, do more improvements, and you basically have a totally renovated structure that's not compliant. So with the 5-year time period, it really encourages what the purpose of the ordinance and floodplain management really is, is that when people are making substantial improvements to a home in the floodplain, that they make it compliant, so that in future they're less likely to suffer risk. And we're also seeing this to be a benefit to property owners in the floodplain because flood insurance rates are only continuing to go up. And when you have a compliant home in the floodplain, your flood insurance rates will be lessened.
Any other questions? Any other questions or comments from the public, as this is a public hearing?
I would just
Bill.
comment that increasing the number of homes that are subject to it from just those in a V zone to those in an AE zone is a substantial number. I have no idea what that number is, but there are a lot of houses.
It doesn't apply to all A zones, it's just the coastal A zones, which are determined by the LMWA, which is a limit of moderate wave action line that's on the actual FEMA map. So it's usually very adjacent to the coastline, so not all A zone properties will be subject to the V zone requirements. But it is a requirement already under the building code, so it's not like they're already required to do it. So this is just to be, in concert with the building code requirements, so we're all on the same page when we're regulating people with what they're doing with their homes.
Do we have any idea about the number of homes in town that might be subject to that inclusion?
I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I have gone to great lengths to make sure that the LMWA line is clearly defined on the GIS layer. It is available on the website, and it's a pretty distinct line. And not all adjacencies to velocity zones include coastal A zones. It's kind of interesting. Some areas do have the coastal A zone designation, and some go right from velocity zone to stillwater A. So I don't think it's going to be a huge number of properties, but it is an increase, certainly.
I have a question about that. How are we going to notify people of this change or compliance? Will people be receiving an email or a letter, or will it come with some way of announcing it?
No, I mean, people who buy homes or live in the floodplain typically know they're in the floodplain, and I do a lot of answering of questions from folks, particularly when homes are for sale. They'll come to Town Hall South and look into the properties or question the fact that it's in a floodplain and what does that mean. And there will be some outreach. I think we have some notices that we put out through one of the little magazines that gets mailed to all the homes and stuff. So there is a little bit of outreach. As the floodplain manager, I typically try to do. But full disclosure, when people buy homes, is to be notified that it is in the floodplain, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. There's a lot of information on the FEMA website as well regarding floodplain and what it means to own a property in the floodplain. If you have a mortgage in the floodplain, you're required to have flood insurance, so you're pretty well aware of the fact that you're in the floodplain. And people have been notified regularly about the increases in costs for flood insurance. And really the goal for floodplain management is to build a resilient community so that even though you do live in a high-risk area, that you won't suffer great damage and losses if we should have another storm event. And based on our experience between Irene and Sandy, it was a kind of a eye-opening experience, I think, for a lot of people in terms of, not having had damage for a long time and then seeing those effects with those two storms back to back.
Isn't another trigger would be if someone pulled a permit and they happened to be in that floodplain
Yes.
zone, we would be able to identify that through our town also, through the
Right,
land.
so the floodplain management requires that I review building permit applications and issue permits for them to do work in the floodplain. And in doing that, I review the amount of work they're doing. If it looks like it's turning in, if they're a new homeowner and it looks like it's turning into a big project, a lot of times give them a call and let them know, just make sure they're aware of the requirements and the 50% rule in terms of how much work they can do to the structure before making it compliant.
Anything else? Steve?
I just want to state that the Hazard Mitigation Commission was approached about a year or so ago about change to the ordinance, and so we are 100% behind this change.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll call the public hearing to a close. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
You don't need to hear about the other two?
That was all three. That was the three.
Okay.
Okay. Item 3, public forum. Anyone wishing to address the board in public forum on any item on the agenda? Hearing none, we have something we need to add to the agenda, and that is there are 2 tolling agreements that have been proffered to us by the Army Corps of Engineers relative to the projects at Chaffin Fitch and Old Quarry Roads. Is there a motion to add those to an executive session?
So moved.
And a
Second.
And a second. Question, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals? Hearing none, motion carries. We have an additional item we'd like to move, and that is an item that came up under old business.
Yeah, if I may, Matt, I'd like to just reorder the sequence of the agenda to put old business at the top with regard to a prospective Eagle Scout project. This young man is in high school. He's here this morning, and we'd like to get him back to school as soon as possible.
To school.
So there's my motion. Please move that out of sequence and take that at the top of the agenda.
So moved.
The second. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals? Hearing none, motion carries. Lou, would you introduce?
That I'd like to introduce Ben Brecklin, Troop 474. This project came before us previously at our meeting in November 19th, and it's a kiosk sign for down at the marina, and I'll let Ben give us some. Our question was really where it was and whether the police department had any comment, and Ben can comment on those items.
Do I have to speak into this?
No, I think you'll be fine.
It'd be better if you're
Yeah.
at the mic side. Yeah. There you go.
That works. That works. How does that look, Sandy?
I'm happy people asked.
Okay. So, I'm Ben Brecklin.
Go ahead.
I'm Ben Brecklin. I'm from Troop 474 here in Guilford. My project is to build a wooden informational two-sided kiosk down at the marina parking lot. It's pretty much when you pull into the marina parking lot, there's this island there with that tree on it. At the very top of my poster, you can see the pictures there.
So the red sign, you drew that in, that's the location?
That will be the location of it. It's right next to the island. It's in a no parking zone right there.
Okay.
It's going to be 9 feet tall from the ground to the very tip of the roof. There'll be 7 feet of room for standing from the ground to the bottom of the roof. I'm hoping to relocate an already existing Faulkner's Island Light Brigade sign. I'm in contact with the Light Brigade. I'm trying to get that better protected, put it under my kiosk, as it's in a place right now where it's very close to the ground, probably gets covered with snow. trying to relocate that, get it better protected. So also,
Did you speak to the police commission about this?
I spoke to the police commission about the project. They emailed me, Lieutenant Jeff Preventure. He said, Ben, I have reviewed your proposed plan. It is not interfering with traffic or having anything to do with regulatory signs. Therefore, this will not need to be presented to the police commission. If you need anything from the police department moving forward, please let me know. And I've also gotten the approval from the Marina Commission.
It turns out, as a structure, you're going to need site plan approval. But our question, I think, for the board was where the location is, and that red diagram. You figured out how to put that on your photograph, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's excellent. Yeah, there are two requirements, permitting requirements that you're going to need to accomplish. And George Kroll, our town planner, has volunteered to work directly with you to steer you through that process. Site plan for planning and zoning, and then secondly, a coastal area management plan, because it is on a property adjacent to the harbor and harbor management, as well as we have to refer to harbor management. Harbor management will weigh in on the applicability. They have no statutory authority to deny or approve it, but you will need the site plan and a coastal area management plan as well. And George Kroll, if I can get your contact information, I think Lou, you probably have it. I'll share it with George, and George will also get you George's contact information so you can reach out to him at your leisure to start the process. So I think this board had already approved this project because we feel it's going to be a wonderful addition to the marina area. Yesterday afternoon, Lou and I had the pleasure of attending two Eagle Scout presentations or ceremonies of pinning, I guess.
Troop 471.
Troop 471, Tim Wheel and Chris Miller. Both of them, for their Eagle Scout projects like you, have provided something of benefit to the community. One was an enhancement to the bocce courts, and the other was a structure, a roof structure. So Ken Wilson won't get wet when he announces soccer games. But at the soccer announcing booth, they actually enclosed it so that the announcing team wouldn't get wet. But also, Rick Maynard had the opportunity to speak, and I believe he talked about over the last several years there have been 9 projects, I think, over the last 4 years, 9 Eagle Scouts pinned. And all of those projects were to the benefit of the community in some form or fashion. Most of them have been worked through with the Park and Rec Commission. This is a little bit different, so I give you a lot of credit for this one as well. Any other comments?
All right. Thanks. We'll be in touch with
Thank you very much.
Kroll's information.
You got it.
Parents, thanks for coming out.
That's it. You guys do you need a note for the principal? I think we can take care of that. That's right. You let Mr. Massetti know if you have any trouble that he's going to appear in front of this board.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You can watch it on TV.
Yeah.
That's right.
You got it. All right. Thank you for moving the agenda around. Is there anything else under old business that anyone wants to bring up since we moved the agenda item? Hearing none, let's move on to item 4 in our originally scheduled agenda, and that's approved minutes, December 17, 2018, regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So, any comments, questions, changes, additions, deletions? Lou?
Yeah, no, just some highlighted some things, but no corrections.
No corrections. Good. All right, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none. Motion carries. Item 5, Facilities Task Force, Gary McElney and Barbara Casey. Chair and co-chair, or co-chair and co-chair, or no?
Do everything Gary says.
Well, that's a first. That's a first in his life.
She did everything.
I had to even sign a paper.
The best move I made as chair was to find a vice chair, co-chair, Barbara. She does everything.
Smart man.
By way of introduction, first of all, I'd like to thank your staff, Tracy and Karen, who have been very helpful. Park and Rec has been helpful. In our formation, Sally B., who has become our secretary has been terrific. So I want to thank you guys. I don't want to thank. We have discovered that this is a much more complex topic than we thought when we signed on. So, to you. But, geez, everything turns out to be much more complex as not a surprise. But we have formed. We have. I think we have a good group with a lot of talent on it. We have redefined or expanded and better defined the goals, which Barbara will talk about in a minute. We started with a bus tour, thanks to Park and Rec. We hopped on the white bus that was out there and toured every facility.
With Steve.
With Steve, who I should mention. Steve has been terrific, by the way. He's a wealth of knowledge. I sort of think of him as part of the task force. But we toured every facility and got everybody a sense of what was going on. It's tempting to say that we know a lot of things that we want to do, but we know that there's conflicting information and other information that's going to come up, so we're sort of holding ourselves back on some of the things that seem obvious until we find out other information. We are preparing a survey, which we should finalize at our next meeting, and we're talking to the department heads at your next department head meeting to explain how that will work. And I think once we get that information back and start sorting through it and talking to specifically to department heads and maybe their commissioners if appropriate, we will build a lot more data on which to figure out where we want to go on a lot of issues. So we've done a lot, but we know there's a heck of a lot in front of us. So with that, let me
Do you
turn
want
it.
to do this first?
No.
Okay. Gotcha. It's not that secret. I have a copy of this for everybody. I apologize. These are our goals and objectives, our scope of work, and it's hot off the press because we made some changes to it last week. So I'll wait until you get a copy. I'll just have a quick conversation. Just a couple of things. One of the reasons that we wanted to do this so early on is because if you see some glaring something there that really needs to be there, then we need to know what that is so we can obviously add it to it. I think we've covered all the basics, and I mean, it's a really simple process, it seems like, and that is to assess town properties and to come up with some recommendations for you, both short and long term, that look at a variety of things. The first thing that we, of course, did was take our bus tour and get a sense of the properties that really need some short-term work in particular. But we also want to support the town charter, and then as we started digging, we find that there are a lot of other studies and efficiency reports that also we could take advantage of. So we now have this huge stack of information, and so one of the first things we're going to start working on is organizing it, which hopefully will help the town as well, so that these things are all in some sort of order that people can search. That's a major task, but one that we think we really need to do. We're trying to review short and long-term needs. As Gary said, we have now a survey for department heads. We're coming to the department head meeting. The survey is going to get piloted. We're going to pilot it with Paul Freeman, who's agreed to do it for us, because he also has buildings, although they're not within the scope of our work. He obviously has a lot of experience with that, so it should help us with that. And we're going to do Park and Rec as well, because they also control a lot of the pieces that we're talking about. Clearly another important piece is public input. And so we are going to hold some public, I wouldn't call them hearings because that's a legal term, but we're going to have some public comment periods where people can come, and we'll have some layouts of maps and things that people can take a look at, and also take a look at our scope of work. We're anticipating that's March or April.
No, just
Go ahead.
Yeah, our meetings are published.
Absolutely.
Any member of the public is eligible to show up and speak in public comment. So we are you have to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning to come to our meeting, but
That's okay.
we
That's
are
okay.
public and anybody is welcome to come.
Right, and I think that's also the reason for coming to department heads meetings. Originally, we weren't planning to come to a department head meeting, but then thinking about it, there are people who have information that would help us. We'd like to be as comprehensive as we can be and not have this be sort of an on-the-shelf kind of report. We're going to look at financial and operational efficiencies. Consolidation is possibilities for things that we might recommend. We're not, however, financial experts, so we'll give you some recommendations and then maybe some ways that you might go about trying to figure out what works better or not. We're going to try to coordinate with other town task forces. There's one going on right now called sustainability, which we really want to be involved with because they're looking at some of the same things we're looking at. The issues of the floodplain that came up this morning become huge in town where DPW is located, for instance. And then we'll make short-term and long-term recommendations. And we actually have an immediate one for today.
Our recommendation for today involves 52 Church, which we've owned for a while. It's timely in the sense that it's winter and some decisions have to be made to winterize it. And the conclusion that we made in our recommendation is that the building be prepped for demolition. It's inadequate for further consideration. There are just too many problems of roof, heat, cellar, multi-level construction issues. And we don't see that will ever be useful for town purposes. Beyond that, we would recommend that the lot be prepared for temporary parking and use for, say, the park and rec or town employees. It be prepared enough so that they could move over there, and that would free up this parking lot. And we suspect that when we finish some of our other information, would recommend that the building be replaced, and there needs to be some preparation. But this is the cycle that we're in. It's premature because we don't have all the input from all of the departments, and what seems obvious to us now may not be as obvious once we've gotten input from all of the departments, and there may be better locations for the people that we think are appropriate there. But we think it's probably appropriate that there be a building prepared there, both for the aesthetics of the neighborhood. It's in a historic district, so there are a number of issues. The plus and minus are there's probably 55 spaces if nothing is built there. Janice did a very rough estimate for us, and we could probably create 55 parking spaces there. If the building remains, or an equivalent size building remains, we're probably down to about 35 spaces.
Correct.
And of course, that building would require some parking. So you probably end up with 25 additional spaces for the community center. So everything is a plus minus, but our recommendation is that it be demolished. It's a risk to the town. Steve will have to winterize it, provide heat. There'd be additional cost to keep it there. So we would recommend demolition, preparation for parking, for temporary parking, and consideration for a potentially new building.
Steve, you're in agreement with the condition of that building. You and I had the opportunity to walk through that, and any use of it for municipal purposes would require significant investment in terms of the layout and making it accessible. So I'm in agreement with that. You also have pulled together some preliminary numbers related to that, because as we move into the budget season, in terms of the demolition, we may need to do that ahead of the fiscal 2019-2020 budget. But you've provided some numbers for us as well.
I think that the number for demolition and creation of a parking lot, paving and if the whole project were to be a parking lot, was about $195,000. Close to $200,000. To do the parking lot right with drainage and so on.
So that's demolition and paving.
That's demolition
And I think the
design.
site would need to be prepared if we're going to put a building on it at some point, right? We want to do some of that work now? Did I misunderstand that? But okay. Oh, well, that's important then.
That number was for full use of the 0.52 acres as parking.
In terms of the parking lot, I'm in support of this whole concept, but in terms of the parking lot, once it's prepared, whether it's temporary or not, it's going to, in effect, become another public municipal lot. So we have to do enough to make it lit and safe,
Exactly.
et cetera, et cetera. So, because even if you say town employees and or what was the other use? I don't
Town
know.
employees.
Anybody could really park there because it's close to stores
Absolutely.
and green,
Correct.
which
That's
is
right.
all good.
That's
But we
right.
just want to be sure then that
Yep.
it's not going to become a liability.
And also, I think we talked about aesthetics in the committee. I mean,
Yeah.
it is in an historic district.
Right.
I mean, nobody wants to see acres of macadam. So, is that an old word?
Yes, that's a
It's
good
an
one.
old word, isn't it?
It's a good one.
I'm sorry. That's just my age speaking. But anyway, yeah.
Does that involve
absolutely.
leaving the garage that's in the back as is, or that would come down also?
I've already got permission to demo that.
So all the buildings on the property would be taken down
Right.
for that number that's come
All
out.
the estimates we talked about included that demolition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Cindy, that is a good point. I mean, it also will require site plan approval and,
All the good things.
historic district. So, as I say, nothing is simple.
We'll work through that process.
Right.
Good. Any other questions or? So you anticipate the questionnaire being done shortly? Is that
Yes.
It's actually finished now. We're piloting it this week.
good?
And we will be in front of the department heads
On
next week.
Monday. Right.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we're
We have to get it.
cranking
done.
along.
Good, good. I want to thank both of you for your service and your commitment to this project. This is an important project for the community going forward, so greatly appreciate. And I apologize for for having perhaps underplayed the amount of time and work involved in it, but you knew better.
We are naive.
we're not naive, that's for sure. And the committee members are fantastic
Good.
as well.
Both
So,
of you are familiar with
it's
the
really
work levels.
important.
Gary's years on the Board of Selectmen and Barbara's work on the Guilford High School Building Committee as well,
Thank
and
you.
other things. So thank you.
There
very
was a
much.
three-way email going around at 7:30 on Saturday morning.
There's something wrong with us.
Amongst Barbara, Bob
just
Hartman,
something
and
wrong with us.
myself. And finally I said, is there something wrong that on a Saturday morning the three of us are
We're doing it.
circling around
Right.
on information?
No, we
Well,
thank you.
we'll
We
be
thank
back.
you. Well done. Thank you.
Thanks.
By the way, the hard part is you guys have to find the money to do
Well,
what we
that's-
recommend.
that's-
You understand that?
Yes. All right, item 6, Kevin McGee, environmental planner. 6.1 is to discuss and take possible action to contract with the tree removal company for the removal of 18 trees located along Great Hill Road. What happened on Great Hill Road? Kevin?
We,
A few ash trees in
there are 18 hazardous and dead trees up there. It's, we are being, this past year, been hit strong by, or actually last year, we got hit strong by the gypsy moth, which put quite a few oaks into decline, and then disease hit them, and they died out. We're still dealing with the sugar maples, the older sugar maples, which are reached age and dying out. These are 100-something-year-old maple trees, which are dying out and dropping into the road. And then we also have our new infestation, which came on this past year, of the emerald ash borer, which is going to be sitting with us for about 6 years or so until it wipes out all our ash trees in the town of Guilford. And that's going to be a big budget item for us coming ahead also. So we have listed here, I sent out contractors contact me. They want to be on the list to bid on jobs. I emailed all the contractors. This went to about 7 contractors for pricing. The trees are located between 790 Great Hill Road and 1779 Great Hill Road. So this is about the upper 1/3 of Great Hill Road, where these are coming out. A group of these are along Regional Water Company property, in front of their private residences there, along this road here. So these are not healthy trees, these are all trees in serious decline or dead. Serious decline pretty much means 80% of the trees pretty much dead, and there's no life on them.
Okay. Questions? Anything else, Kevin?
So as I indicated, I sent this out to about 7 contractors, received bid price quotes back from them, and I was actually anticipating higher prices than I got back on this. That's why I placed it in front of the board here, not knowing what the prices were. And we went from Don's Landscaping and Tree Service for $12,450 up to Lucas Tree Company, which is $26,510. Most of the prices kind of were between the $15,000 and $22,000 mark. The $12,000, he's a new contractor. I didn't know much about him. I asked him, can you give me references? I called 3 references. One was the town of Stratford. And they provided me, this guy does great work. He also comes in low with them also, but they have no issue with him. The New Haven sewer division there, they utilize this company here also. No issues, do good work. And then there's a private, company that does a lot of work for condos that they gave a list for, and they also had no complaints and left the property clean behind them. So, based on those 3 recommendations, I would recommend that we go ahead and with this Don's Landscaping Tree Service for $12,450. This company is out of Orange, Connecticut, and they actually all had the list. They all drove them, saw the trees, and provided the estimates there.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions?
Can I ask a question? Is it all on public property?
It is all the trees I do are within the town right away. They're not on private property.
You stated that they're dead or dying. The property owners that are, even though it's on town right of way, are they aware of this project?
Most of these trees, these are trees that they called me on.
Okay. That's good.
Most of the trees I get are trees they call me on, and one of them in the neighborhood, that's why it seems a balloon, is there's another dead one next to it. Well, I know there's another, up the street is another dead one, so I start, and that's why with a large group like this, it kind of ballooned into a project versus one where a contractor can go out and take care of 1 or 2 trees at a time. This one kind of blew up with the amount of damage that's going on up in that neighborhood there. This area has actually had, over the last storms we had, this is one of the areas kind of hardest hit in terms of trees coming across the road and power outages and stuff up that way too. Been getting a bunch of calls up in that neighborhood too, so this helps, I hope, help remedy some of that, but sometimes you get trees which are 30, 40, 50 feet back which come across the road which you can't even see anything wrong with, or it's on private property which is somewhat out of our control. I can provide them a letter asking them to remove the tree. But sometimes a lot of trees that come down are just healthy trees. This time, like now, the ground's so wet, and the roots can't hold and they just blow over.
Are there any signs on the trees, or are you required to put any signs?
The dead trees, they just get white X's or ribbons because they're hazardous. They have to come out. The trees which are, like I said, 80% dead have the tree removal sign posted on them.
Kevin, your budget, you had $15,000 in encumbrances. Was that for this project?
No.
That's for another one?
Nope, those are just for the on-call contractors for those 1 or 2 that come up in front of somebody's house and stuff.
All right.
So this will require its own purchase order going to this contractor.
Right. Through December, you had expended, not through December, through November, you had expended 45, including that encumbrance, of your 85,000 total in the budget. Your projection end of the year, are we going to be short on this account?
Yes, we're going to be short like last year.
Okay. Good. Something we should remember when we establish the budget in a few weeks. Right?
Like I said, the amount of stuff out there, I have probably looking at another equivalent of this for Upper Long Hill Road, mixed in with some Guilford Lakes area there, and there's still stuff I'm looking at The costs don't stop.
But this is all that's real important for the current fiscal year.
This is getting some stuff rolling.
Yeah.
This time of year, the kind of held off a little bit. This time of year, contractors can't get in backyards and stuff like that. And we, as you see, do well with pricing because they can get on a hard surface, the road, and do something.
Makes sense.
Does make sense. Good. Anything further? All right, is there a motion to approve the expenditure of $12,450 to Don's Landscaping for the removal of the trees that have been identified and tagged by Kevin on Great Hill Road?
So moved.
Second. Call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? Hearing none, motion carries. Kevin, thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin.
Item 7, discuss and take possible action on the award of requests for proposals for lead-based paint risk assessment services and title search services for small cities rehabilitation projects and authorize the first selectman to sign agreements. Pam, we have determined that the original authorization where we entered into an agreement with Lisa Lowe and Associates for the housing rehabilitation grant through the community development block grant program administered by the state of Connecticut gives me the authority to move forward these contracts. So that is obviated. So let's move on to item number 8. Consider and take possible action to set a public hearing date of February 4th, 2019. At 8:30 a.m. in the morning at Town Hall, assuming our elevator is back in service at that time, Steve?
Pressure, Steve.
To consider an ordinance to amend the town code to add to Chapter 58, the Human Rights Commission. For those who recall, we had a group of interested participants. Clarice, April, and Joe are here. They were the original committee that came to us asking for us to establish a Human Rights Commission. And unfortunately, sometimes government moves at a pace that is not quite as quick as we'd like it to be. However, we are at a point where we are in agreement on an ordinance that the 3 co-founders of the organization are happy with. It is predominantly going to be an awareness and education and ombudsman's role, basically to assist those in the community. First off, to raise awareness in the community over the importance of treating everyone with respect and dignity in this community, providing educational, taking the opportunity to provide educational sessions and outreach and programs. Particularly, I'll give you one example. One example we talked about recently was there was an incident at a local restaurant here in town a month and a half ago. We talked about that would have been a perfect opportunity for them to hold a forum in the community for people to be able to talk about it, and to express their opinions, and also, more importantly, would that have created an opportunity for them to develop some kind of training curriculum for all small business employees who may not necessarily have the HR capacities to do that at the front end, and how do you train your employees to react to situations like that? So I think this is a great opportunity for our community, and I want to thank the 3 of you for having brought it to the fore. So is there a motion to set the public hearing date of February 4th at 8:30 a.m. at Town Hall to consider an ordinance to amend the town code to add Chapter 58 Human Rights Commission?
I'll make that motion.
Second. Call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? Hearing none, motion carries. That ordinance will be posted on the town website. I believe there was an article in the Guilford Courier this past Thursday, or recently there was an article talking about it. No, I'm sorry, wrong newspaper. Wrong newspaper. It was that bigger one out of New Haven. That I think a couple of you were quoted in as well. So thank you very much for your work, and the public is invited to attend that and to weigh in as well. Maybe there'll be more attending that public hearing than this morning's 3 ordinances. But nonetheless, thank you very much for your work. Okay. All right, item 9, discuss and take possible action on the illicit disconnections and the discharge. In effect, the 3 ordinances that we talked about at the outset. Yeah, right. So we need to take action and accept those. We can do them. Let's do all 3 of them. Is there a motion to accept those 3 ordinances as discussed and presented to us by Janice Blazier?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Janice, thank you very much for all your work on that. It's one of the things she identified early on in her tenure here. Item 10, the request for the use of town property. 10.1 is to act on a request from the community nursery school to place a sign on the green advertising its open house, taking place January 15th and January 29th, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Item 11, correspondence. Do we have anything under correspondence?
Well, there's no, nothing.
There is, yeah, it's not new. Go
There's
ahead,
something
Lou.
posted. This is interesting. Rumble strips up on, I didn't know it was called Roosevelt Drive. That's interesting.
Really?
I mean, that must be a state designation, but from County Road to the south junction of Lake Drive, the state is doing some chip sealing, and they're proposing rumble strips
Right.
in the center line.
As a safety countermeasures. Janice, any comments on that?
There currently are rumble strips on 77 south of Route 80 through the section, and this is just identified as another safety measure for people to prevent people or make them aware that they're crossing over the yellow line.
Right. It's interesting, the DOT says that if we agree with the above, we agree with this program, please sign and sign a document saying that we do. So I think I need your approval to sign that document to move forward. I'm not sure what the state would do if we didn't do it. They'd probably implement it anyway. But I think it's important for us to be in agreement. This is a safety measure. So is there a motion to authorize me to sign the letter indicating that we are in agreement with the installation of those rumble strips?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Anything else under correspondence? I don't think. Committee reports? Lou? Anything on building?
We are actually reconstituting our local committee. As I mentioned, I had met with North Haven and Branford still in the wings, so we'll meet with them and get together for a recommendation.
Wonderful. Thank you. We already took care of old business. New business? Anyone have anything with new business?
Yeah, I had one item with new business. Actually, more in correspondence potentially.
Okay.
But I had been contacted by someone who had some concern regarding the Coast Guard families that are living up in the north end of town, and with regard to some funding problems for them as a result of, frankly, government shutdown at the federal level. So there may be some public input at the conclusion, but I mentioned I would introduce that someone had reached out to me.
Good. Thank you, Lou. All right, public forum. Perfect.
Oh.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
You're
Go
closing.
ahead. Yep.
I actually have a question, so I know I didn't. I'm sorry. Catherine Adams,
There you go. Thank
250
you.
Drumore Road. Thank you for having the public forum. I appreciate it. I do have a question about the use of a new vendor. So we're using new vendors such as the town for the trees that we were just discussing. I'm wondering a little bit about the removal and disposal of the material. I've noticed there's a big difference in the companies that Eversource uses as well as the train line. And I would like to make sure that we are cognizant of maybe any difference in practice that is not in accordance with our expectations about removal and disposal, timeliness, cleanliness, or whatever it may be, just so that we have consistency when we take new vendors and we set a precedent for being accountable with new vendors.
Good point.
So that's
That was my question. And I'm here today to ask about precedent, again, with dog bites. So when we have dog bites happening in our community, how are we going to apply information going forward, knowing what our history is here, and just understanding how that works, and just, again, being cognizant of precedent and what we're setting.
Okay.
That's really what I have to say today, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Catherine. Bob?
Good morning. I'm Bob Howard at 89 Valley Shore Drive. A number of us are cognizant that we have about a dozen Coast Guard families living in Guilford. Their salaries have stopped since the 30th December, but their expenses have not. They have mortgages and food and, this season, fuel oil expenses, and they've got taxes that are due by the end of this month. And I was wondering what we as a town could do to help these public servants who are on the job. They can't go out and get a second job at the Home Depot or at McDonald's, but they're not being paid. Is there something we can do, or are there things we can do? Can we not charge them interest on late file taxes? Do we have a way to connect them with fuel assistance programs? I don't know, and I don't know exactly how many we do have, but we have a neighbor who's one, and they're severely affected. So that's why I come to the Selectmen for guidance and direction.
Thank you, Bob. Our social service organization certainly could be of assistance relative to fuel assistance and funding for that program. Tammy and her staff are well versed in and actually administer the program along those lines. Relative to the taxes, that's a question I would need to check with the town council on. You're setting a pretty significant precedent by doing that for one class of individuals. And don't take this wrong, regardless of what their job or profession is, they are in a difficult financial situation. There are many in this community who have similar situations, who they may not be not being paid because of political morass in Washington, but they are also suffering greatly as well. Again, before I comment any further, I'd need to talk with town council to determine what we can do within the state statutes, because that would determine whether or not we have the ability to have any wiggle room on that. There are some pretty significant restrictions on waiving interest on late taxes. We have zero. With the state statute, we have zero flexibility relative to that. I don't know whether this creates a different scenario, but your point is well taken, but we will take a look at it, Bob.
Well, I will be in touch with Tammy DeFrancesco straight away then, and see that she's cognizant of this.
Right. Yeah.
To further elaborate on that, there's a non-taxpayer funded source of emergency funds through Tammy's office out for emergency assistance, and most of it is funded by gifts to it's called the Guilford Welfare Gift Fund. That's kind of an antiquated term, but that's what we still use. And that's contributions mainly from Guilford people over the years who want to provide something just like you're describing when someone is suddenly finds themselves short of funds. So just to reiterate to what Matt said, she would be the first person that they should check with as a town help, wouldn't you say?
Okay.
Good. She'll be my first call when I leave.
Yeah, she's going to love that we.
And I mean, certainly to that point, I mean, awareness, and thanks for bringing it up. I mean, awareness is helpful, and people can be in touch who want to help with this problem, be in touch with Tammy's office if they're so inclined.
Inclined to help on a personal basis.
Personally.
And again, it probably goes without saying, and it may not, this being a completely blue state up in terms of our federal representation, but no shortage of communications with our federal representatives would be helpful as well.
Indeed. And they wear blue uniforms.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob. Anyone else on the wishing to speak in public forum? Come on up.
morning. Cindy Vaporis, 7 Alpine Drive, East Haven, Connecticut, United
Morning,
States
Cindy.
of America. Happy New Year, everyone.
You too.
Glad to see everyone is here and looking healthy. I'm here today. I have a couple concerns. I've heard from a few people on the Save Simon Facebook website, which I am an administrator of. I just want to let you folks know that. I am an administrator of that site. A lot of things are being said to people about social media is lying to you. This was said to me by someone who actually called and got to speak to Mr. Hoey. And I'm just concerned because I come here, I'm conscious of everyone here, and I'm respectful, I'm dutiful. Everything I come here with is truthful. I have everything in the world to back it up. There's no reason for me to lie, sir, ever. Okay? This is a pretty cut and dry situation. The boy trespassed on someone else's property. I'm sorry he got bit, but this poor dog should not lose its life. And neither should its family have to expend so much of their money when, and the town shouldn't have to be spending this money. This should have been cut and dry and been between these people's attorneys, okay, and their homeowners insurance. Your folks should have never been involved in this. Now, why that happened? I know a lot of reasons why that happened. Didn't have anything to do with you guys, as we know. Okay, we know that the person that was involved, is no longer here to try to defend any of that. I never get anything from anyone saying, well, this is what happened and this isn't what happened. None of the Phillies ever come forth at any rallies that I hold or any meetings that I hold. They never want to come and say to me, you don't know what you're talking about. Because it's all there in public. I mean, the police report, the boy chanting, kill the dog, kill the dog, kill the dog, as he's waving around his lacrosse stick. This is not lies. It's there. And your folks wrote that down. I mean, it's horrendous that I still have to come here and you guys still have to deal with this too. Can we not try to come to some agreement for this dog? I mean, this dog's suffering. I saw the pictures of him just over the holiday weekend. I haven't been there recently, but his teeth are yellow now. His teeth were never yellow before, okay? He's not getting dental care like he should. The town is not going to pay for that. That's ridiculous, okay? This dog is now turning 9 years old. How much more life does a dog like that have? You know. You have lab, okay? I have a little rescue that I just got that somebody was giving away free on Craigslist. These animals go through so much, and he has a loving family. The Youngs will put up a fence. The Youngs will keep him from being in the front yard. There are many other things to do here than kill this poor, innocent animal who bit a boy. Yes, he bit the boy, okay? There's no discrepancies there. He bit him, okay? But the boy didn't belong there. There was an adult in the yard. He could have yelled over. Everyone sees it. I just really wish that we could all try to come to some agreement on this. Dr. Young is not here today because he's worked a double shift and an overnight. I come here a lot. I speak a lot for the Young family. I don't own this dog. He's not my dog. I'm not getting paid. Okay, this is here for the morals of this. What are we teaching our children? Okay, that money talks, and you can just kill. If you don't like something, you can just kill it. You're talking about ethics and kindness. Well, this is where the kindness in this town should start. Thank you. I know my 3 minutes are up. I appreciate you all, and you have a great week.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Executive session it is. We're going to invite Pam, Janice, you need to stay as well. So both of you. We'll be back for a vote. Yeah, we'll be back for a vote.
Take a minute break.
Yeah, we'll take a. Is there a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second.
I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
As a result of some of our discussions, we're going to take a couple of actions. The first of which is to authorize the first selectman to enter into a contract with Malone and McBroom for ongoing work associated with the DEP consent order in the amount of $20,500. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A second? Any further discussion? No. Hearing none, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. The second item is regarding the tolling agreements between the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the town of Guilford, and we have two of them that we are being asked to, and we have agreed to sign and become a party to. These tolling agreements are for the road elevation projects at Chaffinfish and Old Quarry. Is there a motion to authorize the first selectman to enter into the tolling agreements with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on these two projects?
I'll make that motion.
And second?
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, that was